Hello, Baddies. Welcome back to Baddies Mean Business. Happy Wednesday. Today we have a very, very special baddie we'd like to introduce to you. I'm giddy. I'm so excited to introduce you all to Kalina Bryant. Kalina and I met when we were at the Forbes 30 Under 30 conference. She actually was listed in the category for enterprise software. Love talking to her, love learning more about her story. But she was awarded a Forbes 30 Under 30 for her work as a global head of customer advocacy, as well at a well-known publicly traded SaaS company, and the founder of UnapologeTECH, a training and coaching firm focused on bettering corporation and building diverse talent. She is also the executive director of her nonprofit community, UnapologeTECH Circle, focused on changing the face of business with diversity and providing an inclusive and equitable environment for all. Welcome, Kalina.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here with you ladies. It's such an exciting time.
I know, it's been amazing. You've been doing a lot of extraordinary things, and it's always so fun to jump on the phone with you and finding new updates. But first things first, would just love for you to share a little bit more about you from your own voice. And then also something kind of fun, something that you wish other people knew about you, but you don't often get to share.
Okay, let's see. So I'm Kalina. I hold multiple hats. I'm known for being a trailblazer in the tech industry. What does that mean? Honestly, I'm just a Black woman that doesn't give up, very creative, figuring out how to navigate the industry, but also figuring out also how to have a piece of me always still sacred. So that's why you see me with the training firm, you see me with the nonprofit, developing communities outside. I think it's very important to where you don't let your day job define who you are. It's just an entity of you. So I really express that I'm the trailblazer in technology, but I'm still the owner of my life, which is why I have so many different channels to make sure that I'm educating people, number one, showcasing things that I learned. There's certain things that I had to experience that I wouldn't want someone else to experience. I would say that I pride myself on being, relentless and having grit. But I mean, that comes with a price too. Sometimes you have to learn the hard way. So for me, I'm a trainer and instructor at heart. If I can learn something, I want to make sure that I can give it back. I think of myself as someone that wants to serve. So whenever I receive something, I want to give it back to the world. I honestly would love to just be this impact-driven person. I think that there's enough wealth in the world for everybody to be successful and have abundance. But for some reason, we live in a world where it seems like only a small percentage of people get that access. So I guess, honestly, my gift to the world is make sure that I educate, especially women, especially underrepresented communities. Knowledge is power, and sometimes knowledge is quite expensive. So I make sure that I can give it as best as I possibly can to every channel. So I got the podcast, I'm crafting my first book. I am a trainer. I am, a tech leader, all the above. So I really try to take all of the different channels that I have and just give, because at some point I feel like if I give with good intentions, then obviously the universe blesses me back.
100%. You are a woman of many, many hats. Not only that, you have an incredible sense of fashion. I still, in my head, see the all-white monochrome suit that you wore at the conference when we were hanging out together.
That's funny you said.
She inspired us.
You said to say something that people don't know much about me personally. So on the fashion part, this is funny enough, but when I was growing up, I had everything. It was very strict when it came to education and like being the perfect person almost. My parents had a lot of pressure on me. But the one thing that they allowed me to do was fashion. Like they never told me no on my fashion. So I mean, growing up, I would have like bedazzled blue bell bottoms. I would have like leather pants. And like, I always wanted to wear heels. Even when I was like 5, I would like cry to my mom being like, why can't I have big heels? And she would put rules on being like, you can wear heels, Kalina, but you can only have like 2 inches. And then finally, when I got like to 8th grade, she's like, you still can only have 2 inches. When you get to high school, you can have as many inches as you like. So for me, like fashion was my sense of identity and expression. I was a very shy woman. I struggled with a lot of anxiety because I thought I had to be perfect in so many instances. So when it came to the fashion, like I didn't need anyone's approval. I didn't care about like if I wanted the blue pants, if I wanted like 5-inch heels. It was just like a definition, like how I was able to express myself. So now when you see me, I mean, like there's certain days where I got the blonde hair and the braids, I got the straight hair, I got the heels, I got all the different like fashion you can imagine. But to be fair, when I was growing up, that was my sense of identity. So now I've like brought it to the new world. So you got me with the big Gucci glasses, and it really is because I need to see. But at the same time, like I didn't want it to be boring, right? Like sometimes I'm in corporate America where everything is boring except for my glasses when I walk into the room. So fashion gave me my own voice without me even speaking.
Amazing. Oh, you definitely inspired us with the white suit from Riley's perspective, seeing you in that. That was totally channeled into our Baddies Who Business photo shoot. So
Maybe, yeah.
you've inspired us. And also, I just love that that is something that like you've held on to as like a young child, being the way to express yourself and then channeling that into your like adulthood and into your career and having it be the one thing like, okay, yeah, this might be a tough day, but I got a badass outfit on. I'm going to do the thing. I'm going to look good while doing it. So I think that just in and of itself, like they always say, dressing for yourself is like one of the biggest confidence. Wear that, you know, nice blazer, wear those tall heels, wear that fun jewelry, do it.
Yeah, it's spot on.
So,
When you think about it, when I think about fashion, especially as I've been able to achieve certain things in life, I remember I was like 22 in my second tech job. It was my birthday, and I was working at a tech company in downtown San Francisco, which, if I took the Uber, I was about a 5-minute ride from Maiden Lane, which had the Louboutin store. And
Mm.
it was like I didn't have vision boards, but back then I was like, man, when I can do it, I'm gonna buy my first Louboutins. Like I cannot wait. And sure enough, on my lunch break, I took the Uber. I went, got my shoes, and this is how crazy it was. I hadn't paid that much for anything that my credit card company called me before I bought it, saying like, "Did someone steal your card?" And I was like, "No, it's me. Like, I'm getting my shoes."
Like,
I
leave me
remember being
alone. Leave
right,
me
like leave
alone.
me alone.
I'm
I got
treating
my
myself.
shoes, tried them
yes.
on, went back to the office, and like the whole marketing team was like, "Can we see the shoes? Can we see the shoes?" And back then, I had no idea that that was a part of my personality. For me, it was just like a goal that I wanted to achieve. So
Mm-hmm.
even to this day, every time I achieve something, I allow myself to get one pair of really, really nice shoes. I don't think about the price. I don't think about anything except for how does it make me feel when I put them on. And if
Yes.
I feel really good,
Mm-hmm.
I want them, I get them. And it actually helps me keep achieving more, right? Because you can
Mm-hmm.
never have too many shoes. I don't believe
Mm,
you can.
nope.
Just as you
100%.
can never wear too many hats.
There you
100%.
go.
Yep.
You
And this
know?
was that was literally a conversation that I mean, I give credit to Paige when it comes to like the shoes and like the connection
Mm-hmm.
to their identity. Like I've learned a lot from her and just like how much personality you can exemplify in your shoes. And so one thing we also did when we were at Forbes is both Paige and I, she gifted a pair of Jordans. And so it's like that story together is always going to be like, I'm always going to see that in those pairs of shoes. Like jobs I've worked
Right.
where they have like been sponsored and they give us shoes. So like for at SCSU, like a game we won, I'll always
Mhm.
remember that game. So I think it's really cool to be able to like, yeah,
It's
these
funny you
shoes,
say that.
like
My
they're like a down payment on like
right.
a car or whatever.
It's
But
funny that day when we were at the baseball stadium, and Paige also like schooled me on the Jordans. I had no idea what they meant. I was just like, I just don't understand why tennis shoes are so important. When she broke it down to me, it was interesting. The next day, my mother was in town in Detroit before we left. We went to the shop that she suggested, and they had these gold, white, and black, which is the brand colors for UnapologeTECH. And so I was like, I think I might want these. They were in my size, and I was like, yeah, I think I'll take these. I had no idea that I had gotten some. They were 1985 Jordans or something from back in the day. Like I guess they're it. I didn't realize this until I was walking actually in Canada at a casino, and this guy, like security guard, stopped me, and he was just like, "Your shoes." And for the first time, I actually understood what Paige meant. Of like sometimes if you just have that on. And I had leggings on. It was not like a very dress up outfit, but it was the shoes. And for the first time I understood, like, it's a statement piece. So, you know, thanks to you and Paige, because I would have never bought any Jordans. Like, it was never on my it was never on my checkoff list.
She was a Louboutin girl.
Yeah, I'm the heel girl.
She wearing heels.
I'm on 4 or 5 inches. You know, I want to walk into the room, and that's the shoes. But I do give respect to my Jordans, though. I will. If you don't catch me in my heels, you'll catch me in either some Birkenstocks or the Jordans.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
You know, before we even get too ahead of ourselves.
Look at us.
I would love to jump back. I would love to jump back in your start in tech, because you are a trailblazer, and so I think it's nice to always understand the origin story behind the hero. So Kenz, I don't know if you want to jump in here.
Yeah. Hopping into one of like the questions that we had off the bat was I was really curious, and I think we remembered talking about this maybe briefly, or at least maybe Riley giving me the rundown when she was saying, "Oh my gosh, I met Kalina, she's amazing." Was you getting into tech really accidentally, and like what that looked like for you? So it was through a babysitting gig, from what I remember. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So can you explain to us like what that looked like, and also just kind of like where you are in your shoes now, how that kind of like came full circle, and then also seeing like just the message behind the fact that, you know, sometimes the smallest things or the first jobs can like totally reflect on, you know, what could end up happening for us in the future, and how that kind of relates.
Yeah, definitely. So that is 100% true. So I went to a liberal art Catholic school by the name of St. Mary's College of California, tucked away in Moraga. We usually call it La Miranda, which includes Lafayette, Moraga, and Orinda. And that is a very wealthy neighborhood, that area. And so my school is tucked away on this like mountain. And originally, when I first went to St. Mary's, it's a very pricey school, and I had scholarship, but I still needed to work. So I was actually working at Jamba Juice for a while. And it was interesting. I had made it to like manager, and I think at that time, like manager meant that I made like $7.75 instead of like $7.25. Whoa. And so I remember there was like some politics at Jamba Juice, and I was looking at how many hours I was putting in, and I was just like, this is insane. Long story short, I decided I had got into a program where I could do my study abroad in London. So I had made a deal with my parents of like all the money that I would save, they would actually double it. And so my dad shook hands and was like, yeah, whatever you make in these few months, we'll double it. And so my brain, like, it went into whole like execution mode. And so I left Jamba Juice, and I realized everyone was doing babysitting gigs. And if you were at my school, you kind of got like this green stamp, like golden stamp, that you could babysit their kids. And so I had racked up maybe like 3 to 4 babysitting gigs. And at that time, the roommate that I had, she didn't want to babysit one night. And I was like, hey, I'm saving up money, I'll take that. And so the guy that I babysat for, still a wonderful human being to this day. He was going on a date with his long-term girlfriend, Jean Talley, who was at that time like VP of sales at Marketo. And, you know, we hit it off. He was like, hey, are you going to graduate school right after Kalina? I was like, no, you know, I think I might work for a little bit. And he was like, don't worry. Like, I love how you manage my kids. Like, I'm going to talk to her at dinner. He comes back. You know, she gives me her business card, and she's like, you call me when you're ready. Like, call me if you want a job. I said, okay. Fast forward, like when I did finally graduate, I was like soul searching, thinking, oh, I should get like a really great internship. Like, and I didn't really know what that was at that time. And so I was like, you know what, you still got that lady's card. I called. And so probably like 3 weeks after graduation, I had an interview, and I was like, I don't have a job yet. Oh my God, it's like 3 weeks. I went to the interview, and before I left the parking lot, they called and they were like, you start on Monday. So I would say like right after college, not even a month, I had a job, because literally the lady that, you know, I happened to get her card, she said, you know, leverage it, use it. So I did, and got the job. Didn't understand anything about tech or SaaS or, you know, like Marketo, Salesforce unit. I didn't know any of that. I was more stressed out that I was going over the bridge, and I think the bridge, it was $5 at that time. So I was calculating like 5 times Monday through Friday. I was like, am I going to do this? But yeah, so like in all honesty, I was very focused on figuring out how to make something out of nothing. Like I knew that I always wanted to travel. I knew that I had wonderful opportunities, but opportunities at times take a certain amount of money too. So I definitely was big on traveling, and St. Mary's was big on that as well. So I did London, I did Dominican Republic, but those were all trips that I needed to save a certain amount to have like a luxe experience. And so also with the ability of my parents saying like, hey, if you bring something to the table, we'll bring something to the table. It was always like, and this I think makes me successful to this day, because I always think if I can bring something, then there's something else that's going to be met in return. And so honestly, like babysitting and just saying yes to opportunities, at that time, my roommate just didn't want to do the job. And I could have said no. Like I could have been in my dorm saying, oh, I don't want to go out. But in my brain, I was calculating like, hey, a few hours here turns into this amount of revenue, which turns into more opportunities long term. So I would say like in college, that's the time that you're most creative, obviously, because we're trying to make $1 out of like nothing.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so, and babysitting was fun. Like you learn so much. I would say the reason why I'm actually like very clean on having an inclusive environment, and like why I'm big on allyship and also like diversity, is because I was babysitting kids that didn't actually look like me. Like they were young. Obviously, like most of them just didn't look like me, and it was a first experience for them, first experience for me, and we were very like open. It's interesting babysitting like a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old. They're the most wokest kids, like human beings. They will tell you the truth, but they also soften your heart. They also like help you understand that everybody's not bad. You're taught to be bad. You're taught racism. It's not it's a man-made thing. It's not something you're born with, because every kid that I babysat gave me hope that, wow, if you are the way you are, then the world could actually be a better place too, if we provide that space. So that's honestly how it came about. I was babysitting. I needed to save some money. I wanted to travel. And I said yes to the opportunities.
That is so cool.
I find there's like a common trend in your story of like a lot of like serendipitous moments that ended up, it all just came down to your character and like who you are and what you value. It sounds like things that your parents instilled in you very young, which I think is really extraordinary. And so I would love to just like go deeper into how you, in your career and your personal life, have just understood that making decisions based off of your own personal values is the way to go, and how it's like led to your pathway to where you are today.
Yeah. I would say I'm actually learning this even more now, trusting my gut. There's been moments where when things have been working well for me, it's because I do trust my gut. And also when things have gone wrong, it's because I did not trust my gut. It's interesting because sometimes I consider myself as a perfectionist, which I've been actually trying to not be that way instead of just go with the flow. Obviously still I'm calculated as hell, like everything that I do. I kid you not, like I have wrote the order of operations for that so many times in my head. Like, excuse my French, but that shit gets so difficult in my head, where there's like plan A, B, C, D. But it's because I think a mixture of being a Virgo and also just wanting to do things right. But I would say following my gut, in every situation I've been in, especially in the tech world, there's no wrong or right way to do anything. I would say the only wrong thing that you can do is actually like give up or let certain people in your head. I think that the more things I have accomplished, the more noise that I have, but also I realize I'm learning how to silence it. And I commend my mother specifically because she's very like direct on, you need to quiet the voices, Kalina. You need to have less opinions. And so like the higher you go, that's all you have is more opinions. That's all you have is more people like trying to latch on to you. I've had people that I thought were friends that actually weren't friends, like I've had people that say you should do this, but in reality, it's you should do this because it would benefit them as well. And so if I go back to the books, I go back to what is it that I need and like what is it that I'm trying to do, and I always go back to this impact driven mentality of mine, because I really believe that if you have good intentions and if you're hardworking and if you can show results, then inevitably something great is going to happen. Even if it doesn't go right, there's always like another channel or another field. I think back when I thought I was going to get like my master's to be a therapist, nothing's wrong with being a therapist, but I'm a therapist right now in like 5 different channels.
Yeah.
In my thought process is more so, what does my gut tell me? And like after I've written down exactly what the pros and the cons are, I sit down in silence and I decide. And a lot of the times I actually don't talk to very many people about what I'm going to do next, especially when it's about to be big. I get very radio silent. You can't tell that on social media. Like I think that people should know like what you see on social versus your personal stuff. You should keep certain things to you, right? Like there's certain things that you should manage like the channels a little bit. And so for me, when I'm going to make a choice, I get into my little box, like my little quiet zone. I outline my pros and my cons. I outline scenario A, B, and C, and I just sit on it for a while. And then finally, when I've made the choice, I bring my executive director, which is my mother, in. And and she's hardcore. Like I'm not gonna lie, I think if everybody in the world had a mother like mine, we would all live in a really good world. Like she's resilient, she's honest, and she comes from a loving place. So it allows me to like make really good decisions, especially even if I'm not sure. She's almost like the person that reassures my gut. And so I would say like throughout everything that I've done, especially when it's like rocking and going well, it's because I didn't really ask for opinions, number one. And number two is because I sat down and I like hashed out every single thing I should do. And that goes from like my real estate investments to my career in tech to me like having my external brand and being a thought leader. And then the final straw is more so like mommy dearest. Like, what do you think? Here's this. And, sometimes ideas they're wild as shit, like sometimes I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do a podcast and I'm going to just talk about, like uplifting women. And she's just like, right on. That's
Right
cool.
Right
And
on.
before you know it, you're like, yeah, just like, oh, I'm going to do this job, mom. And I know that like technically I didn't stay at this job that long, but I'm going to do this one now because this plan is going to do this and this. She's like, right on. Or sometimes there's moments where I didn't do certain things and I'm like, and she's like, why would you do that? Like and she's very blunt. She's like, that's stupid. And I'm like, you think so? She's like, yeah, that's really stupid. I'm like, yeah, let me go back to the books. That might actually be bad. So it works. Like I would say having, a very trusted individual in your corner that actually like cares about you, that loves you, like at the end of the day, I'm able to maneuver this world because regardless if I'm like a billionaire or if I'm at rock bottom, my mom loves me regardless. So you need someone like that, whether that's your best friend, your partner, your family member. Hell, it could be telling a bum on the street your ideas might be better than telling someone you really, that you think has your back. At least like there's no secret motive, right? Like they just want the what's best for you. Sometimes if you have like a great idea, either don't tell anyone at all or find someone you really trust that doesn't have a secret motive, because then you can actually get really great advice and they can actually help you dismantle how to execute or how to like outline the order of operations. But it's best to only work with someone that truly has your best intentions or they genuinely have nothing to gain if you make it or not.
It's true. I feel like there's so many. There's like some things I was thinking while you were speaking is like, I was curious, and I think you may have already answered that. Is like, what are those like affirmations? Like, what are the things you tell yourself when there's like those unsteady moments of you're unsure of like whether or not you're making the right decision? Like almost you're not trusting your gut, like you're questioning yourself. And so it's like it sounds like you have a very steady process and like how you overcome that, which is really cool.
Sometimes it's just good to sleep on it. Like sometimes I understand that certain things you don't have the bandwidth to actually sleep on it. But that feeling when something's not right, like your stomach's like all weird and you're like, navigating, trying to like make it work. I think that if you're forcing things to work, then you should take a step back and it's things that are meant for you should never be forced. Like I'm not saying that things won't be difficult, but I'm saying that like if you are in the right path of what you're trying to execute, like all of a sudden you realize the right resources are coming your way, the right people are like reaching out to you. But when it's not right, you actually see like things going wrong. Like there's certain things that should be easy that just are just so difficult for no reason. And I think that you should listen to that because if you're in tune with yourself, in tune with like your well-being in the universe, honestly, like it all goes full circle, you know, like what the energy that you're pushing out, the help that you're seeking. And if it's a great idea and you are like with good intentions, then like the right people actually fall into place. But also I would say like, if you are actually asking, hey, I'm not sure about my gut, what I've been able to ask myself is like, hey, if this doesn't serve me, I'm very like, you know, I consider myself a religious person. So I'm always like, God, you know, like if it doesn't serve me, get it out. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to actually, like, I sometimes there's relationships, right, where I'm like, oh, I want this to work. This is going to be great. And then, like, you know, I'm telling the universe, I'm like, God, if it's not right, do something. And I kid you not, there's like usually an explosion where I'm like, oh, that's over with. Like, you're just supposed to thank you. Like, even I'm like, hey, you could have
Thank you.
warned me. And it's like, hey, I tried to warn you with your gut. You didn't listen. So, boom, now it's
Yeah.
over. I'm like,
Yeah.
cool, right on. Like, thank you for that.
It's like those things where you're just
Beautiful.
like you knew when you were making a decision that you were probably should have done something else, but it's like when you realize it later on, it's like, oh wait, actually that was a calling. That was a
Yes.
calling I should have listened
Basically.
to.
I feel like it's interesting sometimes when we have those like aha moments of like, okay, yeah, that totally makes sense why that didn't work out or did work out when you like reflect back. And we actually talked about this in a previous episode of just like sitting down and reflecting on those moments, because sometimes they're the key moments that can allow us to continue to grow and expand, because it's like, okay, yeah, that happened that time. I either successfully nailed that or I didn't. And if I didn't, then I learned from that and I figure out like what could I have done better, or what could have just simply like not happen or happen, because sometimes it has nothing to do with us and it has everything to do with like our greater purpose and what is supposed to happen later, not present. So it's like what's happened or supposed to happen to you is going to happen to you, and what's a part of your purpose is a part of your purpose. And that's like a beautiful message in and of itself. I also am curious, this has been like a relevant topic that we've been like Riley and I have been talking about, is like that and in with like imposter syndrome and like how that kind of reflects into one another. Because a lot of like when you were talking, I was thinking like, okay, yeah, I have these mindsets, but it's hard for me to like execute them all the time and like be so in tune with myself. So I know Riley kind of asked you this in the previous question, but like what do you really try to like do to focus, like what is one key thing that you would focus on in like a situation that might be going bad? Like I don't know if I'm like repeating the question or not, but essentially like how that lines up with like imposter syndrome. And like I know a lot of people who are early in their career, like Riley and I, are like struggle with, because everything is like coming to us at once and we're like, is this really what's meant for us? And like how to really digest those processes. I don't know if
Mhm.
that makes sense at all, but
No, it makes
yeah.
sense. And I think, you know, to be fair, imposter syndrome, you have to treat it like a muscle, right? Like it's never, there's no like cure to it. Like you
Mm-hmm.
can't take a pill every day and say, oh, I'm not going to have imposter syndrome. And you can't just say like, oh, I took this training, so boom, no more imposter syndrome. I think it's a
Right.
muscle that like, it's like if you work out, right? Like if you're working out, you tone up, everything's working. But the moment you stop working out, obviously like you lose it. And that's the same thing with imposter syndrome. It's a muscle. And I think that, you know, as you're navigating, and I hope I answered this right, but, you know, even for someone that struggles with imposter syndrome, I try to silence things, right? Like sometimes when I see, especially social media, like I'll see what I'm doing, right, of my plans for like the next few months, but then I'll see someone else like really already on it. And I'm like, man, that I should be doing that, or it should look like that. But it's not necessarily your path, right? Like I think that when I see imposter syndrome creeping up, I ask myself, like, why is it creeping up? Is it me, or is it because I'm letting the world kind of, you know, articulate or manipulate how fast I should be going? And I think that like you can't put speed, like you can't put a time on certain things, right? Like I think that obviously you don't need to be perfect at everything, but like if it's your craft, right, you should treat things as your art, regardless of like if you're a corporate person, if you're an actual like musician, whatever it might be. Like we all have our own pieces of art, and like if you want something to be right, you sometimes you just can't rush it. And I think that like we push ourselves because we're so used to everything in the world right now is so popcorn. You know, it's like, oh, you should be here in your career, or, you know, you should be launching this because X, Y, and Z is launching that. And, you know, I think that it's unhealthy, honestly, and you will burn yourself out. And coming from someone personally who has burned herself out a few times by trying to like move so fast, there's no need, like the things are going to fall into place the way they see fit, and it's like for women specifically, we have so much pressure on ourselves. And I generally don't know where that comes from. And I don't know if it's because like as we grow up, we don't get enough credit for certain things. I don't know where it's like it comes from somewhere. Like if we think about the psychology of it, like all the things that we struggle with right now, something happened in the past that, position us to have like these anxiety and these moments and the imposter syndrome. But I think the moral of it is like if you stay true to yourself and like have an actual structured plan, then you can just go back to that. Like I've been in moments where I'm like, oh, my career should be here. And then all of a sudden I get that career, or that new promotion. And then I've been in positions where I'm like, oh, I'm kind of stagnant, like how further do I go? And I mean, this is a quote from my mother, actually. I remember having a certain title and I was like, I'm supposed to be head, like I'm head of this. I'm considered an executive, but I don't feel like it. Like, what do I do now? And she like looked at me and she laughed and she was like, Kalina, you're a CEO of your training company. You're a director of your nonprofit. You're a CEO of your podcast. Like, she was like, just put a name on it and move on. I was like, just like, excuse me. And she was like, you guys in these titles. And, she kind of like thinks about us as millennials, right? She's like, you millennials, like, you just need a title for everything. And like, she's like, everything's man-made. She was like, I remember when you wanted to be director, you got that. And then you were mad about that. And she's like, then you want to be this and you got that. Now you're, and I'm like, oh, does it really sound like that? So when you go back to the imposter syndrome piece of it, I always ask myself, like, why are you actually feeling that way? And if it was driven by society, you got to nip it in the bud right away. All right. Like, I think that that's the best question. If you feel like you are less than, if you feel like you are experiencing imposter syndrome, if you feel like something is wrong and you can't control it, I would take a step back and say, well, why? Like, did you look on social media like 5 minutes before you start feeling this way? Or did you like encounter someone that projects a certain thing so now you feel that way? And if you ever say yes, then just nip it in the butt. Like, just stop. Like, I would say I go for a run usually. Whenever I feel like crazy and I can't, balance out if I'm doing something right, I just literally go for a run, clear my head out. I run till I literally can't breathe because then my thoughts are actually silent and I have to concentrate on the breathing. And like when that actually happens, then I can actually be a little bit more vulnerable and real with myself. And I can actually like box the things that I'm feeling. And half of the time it was me being in my own head. So I think that any person, especially women, like when we think about imposter syndrome and we're naming these things, it's great that we're naming it, but like, let's be real with some action behind actually naming that. And it's like, okay, I struggle with anxiety, right? I struggle with imposter syndrome, but then I say, okay, I identified that, but why is that happening? And then I try to figure out, is it the environment that I'm in? And if I'm in a certain environment that's pushing that on me, I ask myself, can I get out the environment? If I can't get out the environment, I ask myself, like, how can I write my own order of operations to navigate this stuff? And then fast forward, once I can actually put it into action, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then I'm not thinking about the society. I'm not thinking about the imposter syndrome anymore. I'm thinking about the action items now.
Write a book.
So beautifully said. Oh my goodness. I'm so excited for you to write a book.
I know that we're over time right now. Would you have 5 more minutes, Kalina?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, cool. All right. So what I really want to make sure we cover is that you've built this incredible life and career around building communities, crafting communities. And the way I see a lot of it is through, in my personal opinion, when I say community, I see it through like connection and communication and collaboration. And I would love just like your piece of advice for those who are navigating through these many communities that we find online and in person, but how do they can identify the one that they belong to? And just like what you find is like really helpful through your experience overall.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. To be fair, like there was never a community that I fit all the way in, right? And so how I became a community curator is because I never found a box that I fit in. So, growing up, I was Black, but like not too dark, not too light, and it's like I was privileged, but I wasn't that privileged and I wasn't poor, so it was like I had never fit into any type of box. And then it was like I was a woman, but like I was an independent person and like creative as I don't know what, that I couldn't really articulate certain things. I was wanted to be, a designer sometimes. I wanted to sketch things. I wanted to write things. Then I was like a very mathematical person. So I love math. So I was like the geek, but the fashionista at the same time, the popular person, but the not popular person. And so with that being said, like that's too many boxes, right? There's, it's like, which one do you fit in? What community? And so I realized I didn't fit. And so after a certain point of time, I was like, I'll just connect with like everybody. And so the reason why I have so many different types of friends is because each community that I'm a part of has a piece of me. It doesn't define me, it's just a part of me. And so when people are figuring out like, oh my God, how do I like form community? We all as human beings, we thrive off that. That's why we have tribes, that's why we have fraternities, sororities, institutions, you name it. Like we all as human beings need a sense of community. But I think that like don't box yourself in to say, oh my God, like I should be in this one because I'm female, right? Or I should be in this one because I'm Black or Latina or whatever it might be. Like, no, that's just pieces of you. Like you can be in all of them. And matter of fact, if you don't want to be in all of them, you can create a very inclusive one. But I would say that for people that seeking community, like search for it, but don't limit yourself on like, okay, I should only pick one. Like try different ones because what works for you one day doesn't work for you maybe on another day. And we have to be okay with, like having, I guess, like intersectionalities within our communities. Like being in America, being in this world in general, we all have intersectionalities and we have to be okay with that and open to finding people that just believe in us, that inspire us, that uplift us. I think that when we think about community, you should think about energy. And like the energy that you have, you want to make sure that your community matches it somehow. So like if you're on a low, your thing is if you interact with that community, they should bring you up. But you should never be in a community where you came in there super high and then all of a sudden you leave low. And I think that if you can't find that, create your own. Like that's all I do for a living is create community. And it's like when people are like, well, how'd you do this? And it's like, well, because there was a moment where I just didn't have any of that. So it's like I know how it feels to be like at rock bottom where like you don't fit or like where you're trying to like make yourself mold into this community because from an outside perspective that's what someone thinks that you should be. And I mean that's just bull. Like when I stopped letting like society control my thoughts or like what the world thought I should be doing or whatever it might be, and I started saying like, no, this is what I like, here's who I like hanging out with. On Wednesday, I might be the podcaster and the creative person. On Friday, I might be the executive that's talking about OKRs and how this is not right and how much money we got to make. And then on Saturday, you might catch me like being at a farmer's market talking about I want some eucalyptus for my house. And then on Sunday, I might be saging my house being like, I want some good vibes. And, every day that's a different community. If you think about it, like every single person that I just identified is all me, like I'm still the executive. I'm still the number person. I'm still the creator. I'm still the designer. I'm still the like very naturalista person, but I'm not that every day and it's perfectly fine. So I think that people should actually outline like what makes you happy and also what's going to bring out the best energy in you and then start finding your communities or making them.
A million. I mean, there's a saying that we have here at Baddies Mean Business and it's called no boxes in Baddies. And
Well,
so, right. Shout out to Terrell. He kind of trademarked that saying with us. But I feel like it's like this is nice to hear because it's not just because I'm a Gemini. I mean, it's because like it's true. Like everybody has all these identities. It's not. I don't think it's organic to separate them into like compartments. It's just like we are one being, and it all doesn't need to be defined. It's kind of like going into your title thing. Like not everything needs a definition. It just.
Yeah. I mean, that's honestly how UnapologeTECH was formalized, right?
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
I just genuinely want to be unapologetically myself, whether you like it or not. Like as long as I have good intentions and I'm not out there to hurt you, like don't mess me up. Don't mess up my vibe. I'm happy. Like when I come to you, I come with very happy energy. And also when I know my energy is off, I stay at home. by myself until I know I can get it right. But like I make sure that, you know, what you see is what you get, and everybody doesn't vibe with you, and that's perfectly fine, but the right people will vibe with you, and the right people will like your intentions and what you're trying to bring to the table. And honestly, that's when we are the best. Like that's when we produce whatever we're trying to produce. That's when you do the best at it, like when you have the right people that's cheering you on, or like reminding you who you are, like pulling out, like giving compliments, right? I used to think something was wrong because women, they don't give compliments. No, that's not true. There's women that give compliments. Like Riley, me and you met at Forbes giving each other's compliments, and that's where here we are, just like gigging, with all of our different ideas. But the thing is, like, you got to be unapologetically yourself. Like, we hide so much, especially for women. Like we like bury so many things because we don't want to be judged, when in reality, like, if you can learn to be unapologetically yourself, then look what you can do. Like, if I didn't just like say whatever to a lot of things probably like 2 years ago, I wouldn't be who I am right now. So I think that, like, going forward, like, be unapologetically yourself. Always have good intentions though. Like, check yourself too, right? Like, a lot of people haven't actually like went through that process to check themselves and make sure that they're healthy and that they're giving the best version of themselves. When you do that, then you can truly authentically be who you want to be, and like find the right people to be engaged with you. And I think that that's true community too, because like people know exactly what they're getting, and it's like, it's no face. Like, we all somehow in America have this, like, we have like 5 different faces. Especially, I think about the tech industry. I mean, so many people where I'm like, man, I wonder who you really are, outside of this meeting. But when we actually have the ability to take it off, I just think that that's when the real like magic happens, because you get to know me personally, I get to know you, and then we can actually figure out how we can collaborate and make the world a better place too. But if we're both lying to each other, like, what are we're making something plastic. Plastic doesn't last. It actually like messes up the environment. So
Literally.
Yeah,
it literally messes
Yeah.
it up. So maybe we should like try to practice being authentic, and practice like, what does unapologetic mean to you as an individual, and then go searching for the people that embrace who you are. Like, there's always going to be someone that really doesn't like you, right, because of their own problems, but then there's probably like 100 other people that love you because of your authenticity.
The organic approach to life is the way.
Everything should be organic. Like, this whole conversation right now, it's very organic. Like, if you think about it, Riley, like, I didn't know you 2 months ago, and then Mackenzie, like, I didn't even know you a month ago. And it's like, look at the vibe, and it's like, that's because we are whole, we are women, we are honest, and we're all trying to make something impactful happen in the world. So what happens, you get 3 badass women and some positive energy, and boom.
Boom. Boom.
Mic drop, literally. All
literally.
Incredible. Thank you so much, Kalina, for joining us on the pod. You have been incredible, and I hope you baddies who are listening enjoyed her story as well. Just to close this out, would love for you to share anything exciting that's coming up in your life right now, if you'd like to share. And then also, lastly, how can people connect with you on the internet?
Yes, so you can connect with me at Kalina_Bryant on Instagram. Or if you need some advice, need some help, KalinaBryant.com. If you want to check out the training and consulting, UnapologeTECH.com. Season 3 is in the making for UnapologeTECH with Kalina. Stay tuned. We are on all channels, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, you name it. And then I would say the best way, like, DM me on the gram. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm creating and cultivating, and stay on the lookout for the book.
The book, everybody. Yay. Thank you so much, Kalina. We'll go ahead and
Thank you so much, Kalina.
Yes, we're going to link everything in the description, so no worries there. But thank you, Baddies, for listening, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
Bye, Baddies.